Hi, I'm Patty Beebe. I'm a staff developer here at Valley Medical Center. I'm going to talk about hazardous materials today. Okay, this is hazardous material training. Purpose of this class is to identify dangerous chemicals and learn how to protect yourself. We are all potentially exposed to chemical hazards in the workplace. It's your employer's responsibility to give you an inventory of hazardous substances in your work area, access to the safety data sheet of these substances, annual training in handling chemicals, and appropriate protective safety equipment when working with hazardous substances. You have a right to know what hazardous materials are in your work area. File a complaint about dangers at work without being punished or fired. Look at the safety data sheet for each chemical that you use. Get medical care if you're sick or injured, and file a claim for workman's compensation. It is your responsibility to follow the safety rules and regulations on the label and the safety data sheet for all chemicals that you work with. Also use personal protective equipment as indicated. There are three types of hazards: health hazard, physical hazard, and environmental hazard. Additional hazards are simple asphyxiate, combustible dust, pyrophoric gas, and hazards not otherwise classified. Health hazards include acute toxicity, skin corrosion or irritation, serious eye damage or irritation, respiratory skin sensitization, germ cell mutagenicity, carcinogenicity, reproductive toxicity, target organ system toxicity, and aspiration toxicity. Physical hazards include corrosive to metal, explosive, flammable, gas under pressure, and I'll talk about that again in another slide, organic peroxides, oxidizers, self-heating or self-reactive substances, substances which on contact with water emit flammable gases, and pyrophoric liquids or solids. Hazardous to the environment is acute or chronic aquatic toxicity. So we've chosen some of the most common chemicals that we have potential for exposure at work. Chlorine includes bleach, signs of poisoning or exposure. For the fumes, irritation of the nose, throat, and lungs. If you get this in your eye, substantial, but we hope temporary eye injury, skin irritation, and if you drink it, nausea and vomiting. Quaternary ammonias, that's most of our cleaners are based on quaternary ammonias. You have Santa-Cloth and most disinfectants. So the Santa-Cloth, a special caution with the Santa-Cloth. Please be careful because it's in a tub like baby wipes, and some people perceive that to be baby wipes. So please keep that in mind when you have the Sandy wipes out in the public. So our quaternary ammonias can cause irritation of the nasal passages, can cause irreversible eye damage, moderate skin inflammation, and abdominal discomfort if you drink it. Formalin or formaldehyde, this is used for preserving specimens, used in OR, labor and delivery. It's highly irritating to the lungs and sinuses, can cause eye irritation and conjunctivitis. It gets in your eyes and serious damage, irritating to the skin, and toxic if ingested. Glutaraldehyde is a cold sterilant, can be highly irritating for the lungs and sinuses, severe eye irritation, skin irritation, and toxic if ingested. There's 3 ways chemicals can get into the body: absorption through the skin, inhalation in the lungs, and ingestion. And we protect ourselves with personal protective equipment, gloves, goggles, apron, or a gown, and face mask. Safe work practices: wash your hands after working with hazardous materials. Safe storage needs to have signs either warning or danger. Locked, clean, well lit, well ventilated. Do not store above eye level. Do not mix chemicals unless you're authorized and trained. Some chemicals, when you mix them, can become very dangerous. When mixing or pouring, use protective equipment, flat, uncluttered surface. Get help lifting large containers and label new containers. When you are labeling a secondary container, you need to put on the chemical name or product identifier and any hazard warnings. How to treat if you are exposed to chemicals. If you're in fumes, get out of the fumes. Ventilate the area. Chemicals in the eyes. Remove contact lenses. Flush eyes for 15 minutes. Skin, remove contaminated clothing and wash the skin. Take the injured or ill person to medical care. Don't leave them alone. They should first go to employee health. If employee health is closed, then go to the emergency department. Compressed gas. Compressed gases are stored in containers at high pressure. Must always be secured in an upright position, usually in a rack, away from heat source and high temperature. Avoid dropping or contact with sharp objects. Keep caps on at all times. Store flammable gases separate from oxidizing gases. If you get a hole in a gas container, then it could become a missile. So that's why they're very fragile. Make sure there are fire extinguishers available for emergencies. No smoking, flammable gas signs posted at storage area. Anytime we move cylinders, they need to be on a cart or a hand truck. And when we're using the gas out of a compressed gas cylinder, you need to have a pressure regulator. The effects of the gas, if you're exposed to it, depend on what kind of gas is in there. Most of the compressed gas cylinders we have are with oxygen. The dangers of oxygen are that it makes the atmosphere more flammable. But if we inhale a little extra oxygen, it's not usually a big deal. But if you had, for instance, an anesthesia gas leaking out of those cylinders, that would be a different story. That can make someone unconscious. So you want to move the person to fresh air, give them oxygen if necessary. If it was another kind of gas, the danger might be displacing the air in the room, and in that case, the person would run out of air to breathe. So again, we'd be moving the person out to fresh air and giving them oxygen if necessary. Flammable materials, examples are spray paint or aerosols, hydrogen gas, acetone, These are chemicals that can generate vapors that are flammable or combustible. Transferring of liquids should occur in a storage room or within a fume hood. Need to clean up spills promptly. Only use approved safety containers. Needs to be no smoking signs and a fire extinguisher. Safety data sheets contain all of the information you would ever want to know about the chemicals you're working with. Identification, hazard identification, composition, first aid, firefighting, accidental release, handling and storage, exposure control, personal protection. Physical and chemical properties, stability, reactivity, toxicological information, and more. How to read the product label. The regulations applying to labeling are called the Globally Harmonized System as of June 2015. And there are certain things that need to be on the label of the primary container. The product identifier is how the chemical is identified. Can be a chemical name, a code number, or a batch number. Supplier identification, the name, address, and phone number of the manufacturer or supplier of the product must be on the label. Pictograms. So the next slide shows all of the pictograms, and I'm going to go to that one. Pictograms include health hazard, flame for flammable, exclamation mark, has a lot of the more health things on there. Gas cylinder is gas under pressure. Corrosion, corrosion of the skin or metals. Exploding bomb for explosives. Flame over a circle is an oxidizer. Environment is aquatic toxicity. And skull and crossbones is acutely toxic, fatal or toxic. Signal word. There are only two signal words, either danger or warning. Danger is a more severe hazard. Warning is for a less severe hazard. Hazard statement describes the nature of the hazard. Precautionary statement tells you how to protect yourself against the hazard and exposures, how to store properly, and first aid if you are exposed to the chemical. Supplementary information, anything else that the manufacturer thinks needs to be on the label. This is an example of a safety data sheet for oxygen. You can see where the arrow is pointing down to the pictograms. There it has oxidizer and compressed gas are the pictograms. Below that is the signal word and it says danger. Then it has the hazard statements and precautionary statements. For further information, refer to your written hazard communication program. That concludes our presentation. Thank you for your attention.